So I think recording has started and our speaker has already joined with us, Professor G. Hargopal. And today he will be speaking on uh, the title of the talk is Philosophical Foundation of Human Rights. In fact, this is the title of a course. When I was in Hyderabad University, I was doing my post-graduation. I think in my third semester, I opted this course, Philosophical Foundation of Human Rights. Today we are having Dr. Suresh Chandra Patel, and he will introduce the topic to all of you. And as the convener, let me introduce the speaker. Professor G. Hargopal, he is my teacher, and I have opted, as I already earlier said, I have opted the optional course, Philosophical Foundation of Human Rights, offered by him in the Department of Political Science in Hyderabad University. So currently, Sir is the visiting professor at Bangalore, and he is working in National Law School of India University, NLSIU, and he is teaching to the students of master's program in public policy. In Hyderabad University, he has set the Center for Human Rights, and he was the editor of Indian Journal of Human Rights. He was the visiting professor to Delhi University, Indian Institute of Advanced Study, Simla, and he was the visiting professor in the Northeast Hill University, Shillong, and Uppsala University, Sweden. And he was the UGC National Lecturer during 1989 to 1991. He has lectured at Oxford University, he has lectured in London University, and he has lectured in Cornell University in United States of America. And he was a delegate of National Rights Program at Montreal, Canada. He was an ICSSR National Fellow at Tata Institute of Social Science at Hyderabad. He has published 4 books and 3 edited books in English and 3 edited books in Telugu. 60 research papers in national and international journals are in his credit. More importantly, he has been associated with the civil rights movements for last 4 decades, 40 years. Therefore, in India, I have experienced that any discussion on human rights is incomplete without remembering Professor G. Hargopal. And sir, I am very, lucky to find you as my teacher. And once a student, always a student. And there are many participants across, India. They have also, joined. But primarily, I am doing it for my students only. So I expect your talk will help our students. Your talk will make our student understand that how philosophy is related with human right. So as long as you cannot connect your rights with the philosophy, then you cannot hold your rights strongly. So in that context, I welcome Dr. Suresh Chandra Patel. He was my colleague. He in the last year he got retired from our department, and I welcome him and I request him to introduce the theme of today's talk. Yes, sir. Patel, sir, you can unmute and you can start. Patel, sir, you have to unmute your audio. Yes.
Now, am I audible?
Yes, you are very much audible.
Thank you, Dr. Mishra, the convener of this web series, esteemed Professor G. Hargopal, all the learned participants who are present in this webinar. A very, very good evening to all of you. It is an honor bestowed upon me by Dr. Mishra to introduce a topic which is the most sensitive and debated issues of the today, and that too in the presence of a dignitary like Professor G. Hargopal, who is an eminent authority on the topic of human rights. I have the privilege of listening to him right now when Dr. Mishra was introducing him, and I am very much happy that I've been entrusted with the honor of introducing a topic in presence of her. I am aware of the fact that he will be talking on the philosophical foundation of human rights later on, but even then, I profusely thank Dr. Mishra for trusting me to introduce the topic in presence of him. Frankly speaking, I don't have the hesitation of saying that human rights today is a topic which needs no introduction. There is no need of introducing human rights. But even then, for the sake of introduction, I will point out that human rights today is the alpha and omega of a humanity quest for better existence. Everywhere, human beings have become the most important assets of the 21st century. So when we talk of human rights, we will find that economic system, religions, even government, even philosophies, ideologies, all of them are either relevant or irrelevant, either accepted or rejected, stable or unstable, simply on the way how they respond to human rights. So human needs and human aspirations are the basic cornerstone of the new millennium. So human rights is an area which needs no introduction. Today, it is the most important debated topic of the day. But when we talk of human rights, actually, I have one thing in my mind that many concepts of human rights are philosophic in nature, then pragmatic. They are general in nature, then specific. From Aristotle to Saint Augustine, Mencius, a lot of philosophers, a lot of politicians, even statesmen, they have tried to debate and discuss upon human rights. And you will find today we have a lot of declarations, conventions, treaties, and whatnot, debates, seminars, webinars, everything is going on around the world relating to human rights. But we are missing one thing, that is, in practice, we are talking about human rights. In practice, we are writing about human rights. In practice, we have a lot of covenants, we have a lot of contracts, we have a lot of things, a lot of documents relating to human rights. But most of the time, when you go to the literature of human rights, we will find that there is no theoretical justification of these practices, and more so philosophical justification. So that is where the area is lacking. We need to know what are the philosophical foundation of human rights, how human rights and philosophy are closely related, how human rights law and the philosophical foundation of human rights are related. I hope during the course of the deliberation, sir will be illuminating on the basic concepts of human right, what makes human right, what is the relationship between philosophical foundation of human rights and the human rights law, and what are the challenges in appealing to human rights. I know, and Dr. Mishra has also told me that I should be encircling me within 5 minutes, and I don't have the audacity to take more time in the presence of Professor G. Gopal. Sir, I'm extremely thankful that I will be here, I will be available to listen to you. With these few words, I hand over to Dr. H.S. Mishra. Thank you, sir. Please.
So thank you, Patel sir. And let me say that, since my joining to this university, uh, I have I have been seeing Dr. Suresh Chandra Patel. He has been dealing with the course human right in our department. So that's why I thought that he will be the appropriate person to introduce the topic. And Hargopal sir and the human right, these are synonymous. It's not my view. It is a view shared by many.
Yes,
So
yes.
with this introduction, now I welcome my teacher Hargopal sir to start his deliberation. Please, sir, you
Yeah,
may continue.
Dr. Himanshu Mishra, Professor Suresh Patelji, and friends. I see a large number of women participants from the list. I'm personally very happy because in the course of this lecture, I will be touching feminist perspective and how feminists are looking entire spectrum range of human rights. Before I start lecture, I recall my association with Sambalpur University because one of my very close friends, Professor R.S. Rao, was who was a very eminent economist, wanted to serve a university in a backward area, and he was in a Gokhale Institute, most prestigious institute, as a teacher. But since his conviction was to go to a backward area, and between Gokhale Institute in Pune and Sambalpur, Rao preferred to go to Sambalpur University, and he spent his entire career in Sambalpur. He trained several economists like Govind Rao, who became a finance commission member, and Rao used to teach econometrics. And also he was a very sound political economist. So that was the time when I used to go to Sambalpur University for some time to spend some time and to attend some seminars. And Sambalpur University used to hold national conferences of Indian Political Science Association, Indian Public Administration Association. I was also on the selection committee of the university a couple of times. So I have this long association with Sambalpur, a lot of memories with Sambalpur. That's why when this demand came that I should speak on human rights, I became nostalgic of Sambalpur, and was partly with Orissa because I handled a case of kidnap in Orissa, and that's how I became close to partly to Orissa government, and I appreciate actually your chief minister because when I after 3 months of this abduction, when I went to see him, he spent 2 hours sitting with me and reviewing how many demands were met and all that. I mean, in that sense, in fact, I have a lot because I have seen other several chief ministers, but this chief minister, at least as far as I am concerned, had a respect, and you can't imagine somebody spending a couple of hours, with a university teacher. But that's what your chief minister is, and compared to many other chief ministers, somehow I have quite a bit of appreciation for him. Now, coming to the whole question of human rights, I will start with an observation made by Upendra Bakshi in The Future of Human Rights, a very perceptive book, where he raises this question: human rights or right to be human? This is where we start. Human rights are right to be human. Now, when do you call a human being human? What are the parameters to say that a human is a human? Because human being is a unique, or human society is a unique species compared to the several other species. And human beings have hands, which other species are not privileged with. And through the hand, their mind develop, they have imagination, and they have language, which is again one of the greatest, endowments of a human being. Most of the other species do not speak. They may have their own language, but they can't speak because through a structured language. And therefore, that's the uniqueness of human being. But in the course of development, if you find a woman in rags with a child in her lap, begging at a crossroads, do you call her human? Or a child picking up, thrown away food, or from the dustbin near a hotel, do you call that child a human? So, in fact, human is human, as Dr. Ambedkar put it, when you have dignity and self-respect. This is what distinguishes a human being from the other human beings. And therefore, the human rights, the conceptual or philosophical foundations are so specific, so human, or at least it's an attempt to discover the human being, discover multi-dimensions of human being, and create such conditions through human rights where human beings can realize their full potential. Everybody has creativity, critical faculties, but the conditions in the society should be such that it gives me an opportunity or enough of opportunities for realizing my full potential. Most of the human beings do not realize their full potential because they don't have the proper economic condition, they do not have property, they do not have the family background, and the school, particularly government schools have not been able to. Although I studied in a government school, but now today only poor children go to government school. So therefore, what I'm saying is that the human right, the craving or the purpose of human rights is to create conducive conditions where human beings can realize their full potential. In other words, when we live full life and when we look back, life should look completely meaningful, that we lived a full life. That is the feeling human beings should have. But we are quite far away from such social structure. But in human rights, we keep on debating, the conditions and the evolution and how human species, can evolve or have evolved, and what is the future unfolding for the human rights, a human society. Now, there are different ways of looking at human rights. Dr. Mishra was telling that, I was teaching a full course on philosophical foundations of human rights. But when you talk of philosophical foundations, there are different approaches. In a brief lecture, you have to cover the entire course that I used to teach in a semester. But my attempt would be just to acquaint you with certain concepts in human rights, theoretical concept. What Prof. Patel was telling that, theoretical foundations are needed to understand the everyday practices of human being and human rights. What are the various practices? If you start the evolution of human rights in the modern way we understand human rights, we normally trace it to Magna Carta of 13th century, where for the first time the rich people, the feudal gentry, started demanding certain freedom, certain right from the state. Because the state, the governmental structure is a unique institution in the sense that state alone can use the force against an individual. I can't use force against anybody. Even if I'm abused, beaten, I have to go and report to the police, and they have to take the action. So, in other words, in an evolved society, human being can't use force against other human beings, right? But the state can use the force under certain conditions, and the police can lathi charge. Police carries their lathi in their hand. Sometimes they may carry a weapon. and they can detain you, they can arrest you. I mean, the state has this extraordinary powers. But once you give this type of power to the state, how do you ensure that this power given to the state is not misused? That's one of the concerns of human rights. So from the Magna Carta downwards, various revolutions that have taken place, be it American War of Independence or the way the British law evolved, or the French Revolution, which has given us some of the noblest human values, or the freedom struggles of Africa, Latin America, and particularly for India, where we fought against colonialism and we wanted a free India. What do you mean by freedom? The freedom is part of the human rights. It's the human rights which ensure the freedom. We wanted a free India, we got freedom. But getting freedom is not enough unless there are conditions where you can enjoy those freedoms. So we had a freedom movement where all of us thought that why should a foreigner rule, and we will have our own self-governance, we'll have our own people, and we'll have our own law and order machinery, and we'll have a state committed to it. There you find that what is the role of the state, you can find in the Indian Constitution. In the Indian Constitution, unlike many other constitutions, it's a unique constitution, thanks to Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar, because it is unique in the sense that state, which is an agency of maintaining law and order, even by using force, is mandated by the Indian Constitution to transform the society. The function of the state is to maintain order, but Constitution of India mandates the state to change the order, to change the society. Can a state change the society? Can it change the order of the society? Is a big challenge. But if you read Constitution of India, read the preamble, or if you read Article 38 and Article 39, which I'm very fond of quoting, Article 38 says, what should state do? Reduce inequalities in income, status, opportunities, and facilities. And what does Article 39 say? Article 39 says means of production, that is land, labor, capital, the means of production should not be monopolized or centralized in the hands of the few, and the wealth should not become detrimental to the common good. Wealth should be so structured that it should facilitate and should not hamper. And therefore, Article 39 says that the wealth should not be concentrated. So therefore, they have very noble goals. So we are also borrowing from the human civilization. In the Constitution, we guarantee liberty, equality, fraternity, and justice. These are the four important values. Please reflect on these values: liberty, equality, fraternity, and justice. Now, these are the core values of the Constitution of India, which are derived from the philosophical traditions of the human history. They are not evolved only in India. We have borrowed from different parts of the history, and we have enshrined in the Constitution of India. We guarantee to the people of India liberty, liberty of thought, liberty of belief, right? Several liberties are guaranteed. Equality in terms of opportunities, and fraternity, living together, social harmony of all religious people, all faiths, all cultures, different diversities of India. Look at Nagaland, look at Manipur, look at Kerala, look at Kashmir. I mean, so diverse country. So diverse. But all these diverse cultures should learn to live together in harmony. So therefore, Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar says that fraternity in India is very important. We have so many caste groups, and there is a very hierarchical and very discriminatory. This order has to change. That government has to contribute to the change towards what? Towards equality and towards the liberty, towards the fraternity and justice, which part 4 of the Constitution talks about. Now, when we talk about this, the state has to play this role of a change agent. But then the state is organized power. As I said, it alone can use force against the citizen. Then, where from the state derives its power? Because freedom and power, they are always at loggerheads. State wants more power, citizen wants more freedom. How do you strike a balance? If you the logical limit of power is despotism. Logical limit of freedom is anarchy. If you give complete freedom, society may become anarchic. If you give complete power, state will become despotic. Now, for the human rights, discourse, what is important is how do you strike a balance between power and freedom? How to regulate the power? If a policeman has a weapon, supposing he feels like beating, can he do? So therefore, there is what is called a law. Constitution is a legal document. It consists a number of laws. Now, where from the state derives the power? State derives its power from the law. There is no other source except law. Now, what does the law do? What law does is, it gives power to the state and freedom to the citizen. How do you exercise freedom? As the Patel ji was mentioning, how do you enjoy your freedom? You enjoy your freedom through human rights. Rights are guaranteed. And therefore, we have human rights and which ensure the freedom. And the freedom from whom? Freedom from power, freedom from hierarchy, freedom from dominance, freedom from discrimination. Amartya Sen talks of freedom of and freedom from poverty, freedom from hunger, freedom of speech. Of is one way, the right, and from, is off and from. Sen talks in one of his, he says off and from. So therefore, the rule of law, which is very important for human rights, is that the law gives power to the state and law also limits the power of the state. That's where human rights become very important. Human rights become very important because you are given the right to ensure that the state will not use excessive power against the citizen. Right? And rule of law becomes central to the liberal philosophy. All liberals, be it Rousseau, be it Thomas Paine, the R.J.S. Mill, the philosophers of the human rights. If you look at all of them, they say that rule of law is central to the understanding of human rights. Law as a source of rights. Law as a restriction on the power of the state. Because no society can ever give unrestrained power to any human being or to any state. We should never allow state to have complete power, and the individual will become a subject, not a citizen. Concept of citizen is we are dignified, we are self-respecting, we can question the state, and if they misuse the power, we can challenge and tell them, and therefore there is a judicial review, and you can always go to judiciary to enforce your rights and restrain the state from using the excesses. So therefore, you have rule of law as central. So they say that the state derives its power from the law, but where from the law comes? Law comes from the consent of the people. Any law, you can't pass any law. The rule of law is a civilizational standard. It's a normative standard. It's not, that's why we make a distinction between rule of law and rule by law. There is a difference. Rule by law means Parliament can pass any law. Any law. But can it pass any law? No. That law should conform to the standards of the society, the human rights standards of the society. You can't, pass any law and say that, no, this is a rule of law. No, rule of law is not that. Rule of the law should stand the test of civilization, 21st century civilizational standard. That's why Parliament has power to pass the law, but it can't pass any law. It should be within the constitutional and the legal, permissibility, within the law, for boundaries of law. That is what is extremely important. Therefore, rule of law has the consent of the people. And therefore, consent becomes very important in philosophy. In legal theory, consent of the human being becomes very important. And if you read Rousseau, or if you read Thomas Paine, and if you read any of these Western philosophers, there is a lot of emphasis on the consent of individual, that I should consent to have a law. In our consent of the people is important for the law. So Parliament can pass law in conformity with the standards that the society wants, human rights standards. So therefore, you can't pass any arbitrary law. Now, if you give an arbitrary power to the state, then the state can go berserk. Then what happens to the people. So therefore, you don't have, only perhaps the distinction is American society, because American society, in the Constitution, American Constitution, there is a right, there is a human right that everybody can bear a weapon. Everybody can have a weapon as a fundamental right, as a human right in American society. Because after the American Civil War, people had all weapons. Everybody had a weapon. And then after the formation of the US, when they were forming the Constitution, people said, we will not surrender our weapon. Because if somebody misuses, the state misuses, what do I do? How do I protect myself? Therefore, I want my gun. That's why you listen to all these stories, children carrying weapons and all that. They sometimes they buy, bullets, along with the vegetables and all that. But as far as our society is concerned, or most of the societies are concerned, we have surrendered our right to bear the weapon. We are not asking for a weapon. We have given monopoly of weapon to the state. Having given monopoly of the weapon to the state should use that weapon in accordance with the law. Otherwise, we have a threat of losing all our freedoms. So therefore, rule of law in human rights becomes extremely important. And that's why I'm again mentioning that rule of law is different from rule by law. You can't say reduce half of the population. And Parliament, nobody will accept. How can the state reduce the population just like that? Or they can say that no, we will beat up, the police will be given power to do anything that they want. That is not civilizational standard. State has to conduct itself within the parameters of the law. Therefore, for human rights, law and rule of law are extremely important. Consent of the human being is also very important. So this, I would say that human beings are given rights, and rights are given, depending upon the stage of development of a society. And it's the human rights which ensure our freedoms and our dignified life, and to live a life of dignity and self-respect, on which Baba Sahib Ambedkar had so much of he was always talked of dignity and self-respect. Dignity and self-respect become philosophical foundation of the human rights. But then, in the liberal theory, when you talk of consent, when you talk of the individual bearing the rights, when you talk of that, while liberal theory approves this, there is a lot of criticism. Because within the philosophical discourse, there is a lot of criticism. For example, Noam Chomsky, in his writings, has been saying that conscious consent of a human being is very important for governance. But he says consent can be manufactured. Consent can be manufactured. There you have to be very careful. How can it be manufactured? If you look at the media, look at print media, look at information, to look at what information we get, whether we are getting right information or not, we don't know. We look at English channels and look at somebody like Arnab Goswami, what they do and how they are speaking and the type of information they are bombarding us with. The common man in a village who works day and night, goes in the early morning, comes back, doesn't have time like us to reflect on human rights and all that. So, how does he get? Sometimes he may have a radio or he may have a TV channel. If he switches on, and then he gets some information, and that's how opinions are formed. So you can build images of people, you can build the powerful images of the people, but whether people are getting the right information. Chomsky argues that the media has become so biased that it gives you not healthy, balanced, correct information, but it gives you such a type of information where it would like to form and to see that you form your opinion according to media and not according to your own experience of life. So in his book, Manufacturing Consent, he keeps on saying that given the technological development and the expansion of the media and expansion of the print media, how people get correct information. So therefore, when you say, although rights are guaranteed and all that, and consent is very important, but consent should be based on my consciousness. But how is my consciousness determined? My consciousness is determined by media and the information that I am getting. So therefore, there is too much of propaganda. And the propaganda goes to a level that even our own life experience we don't believe. We don't believe our own life experience. That's the power of the media. So what Chomsky is arguing in his Human Rights, Political Economy of Human Rights, 2 volumes that he has written, that unfortunately technology, instead of empowering the individual to exercise his full rights, technology is being used more to generate consent rather than strengthen the consent. This is one critique. But then when you come to the feminists, since there are a large number of lady participants in this group, what is very important is that feminists are arguing that the human rights discourse of liberalism is faulty. There's a fault line. And they say that it's very inadequate, incomplete. What they're saying is that individual is the bearer of rights. When you say freedom of speech, freedom, whom are you giving the freedom? You are giving the freedom to the individual, right? That individual is an atomistic individual, lonely individual, or whatever you may call. As an individual, I have certain rights. Individual as a bearer of rights. This individual is an atomistic individual. That's what the liberal theory says. The individual is atomized, and therefore you have the atomistic individual. But women are arguing that the atomistic individual can be only man; it can't be woman. Why? Because she is the procreator. She is the one who continues the human race. Now, when she is pregnant, can she be an atomistic individual? Or there is one life dependent on another life? And 9 months when she is carrying the baby, she is what the feminists are calling maternal thinking, the unity of thinking along with the child growing in home. And they are arguing that the woman during her pregnancy eats the food or does everything being so careful that there is a life inside her womb. So therefore they are saying, by defining individual as an atomistic individual, you are defining man but not woman. And therefore they are saying that the entire theory is male bias. And we have not taken the woman's experience, woman's understanding into our consideration while formulating the philosophical concepts of human rights. So they are challenging the liberal theory on the ground that atomistic individualism and therefore rights are completely conceived as male-centric. They are again arguing another thing, that in human rights, right to privacy is very important. We have a private life. What we do in the private life is none of the concern of society. In private life, we have a lot of freedom. What book I read or what movie I watch, I should have the freedom. But what they are saying is that human rights are located in the private domain. Freedom and all, in a private domain. In the public domain, not private domain. Human rights are located in the public domain. Private life is excluded from the human rights domain. Now they are arguing, if there is a violence in the family, if there is a violence outside, there is a state to take care of that. Person can be arrested, can be punished, he can be tried. But when there is a violence within the family, the society thinks that family violence is private and it should not, it does not come within the purview of human rights. Because human rights are public domain, relations outside. But within the family, the hierarchy, the discrimination or whatever that happens, the power distribution in the family, the male dominance, or the privileges men enjoy, or sometimes the force that man uses against woman. Now human rights, the liberal theory says, no, they are all private. The women are asking that if I am beaten, I am very weak, and all that, if nobody comes to my support, I suffer in the family, and now you are saying that this is a private domain, that how do I get out of the whole thing? Or how do I, contain the man? Or how do you regulate the man? If the state says, no, no, ma, it's your private domain. If the wife goes and complains in the police station, they say it's a problem between you and your husband, ma, you go and settle it. Why are you coming to police station? But the interesting thing about the society is that the social values are so structured that one human being beating another human being is a violation of right, right? All of us would agree. So if husband is beating the wife, you may pity, you may concern, you say, what is this fellow beats the wife and all that, you feel sorry. But if wife beats the husband, what is happening? And you would say that what woman is beating, wife is beating. Now, the feminists are arguing why your responses are different. If husband beats the wife, pity. If the wife beats the husband, anger or embarrassment, why? Response should be the same for same action. Beating is beating. One human being is beating another. But our values are so structured that one violence does not look as violence and another violence looks as violence. If landlord beats the agricultural laborer, pity. If agricultural laborer beats the landlord, it becomes revolution. You say it's a revolt. Oh my God, agricultural laborer is revolting against landlord. But if the landlord is beating, our responses are. In other words, women are arguing that the value system is so structured in the society that our response is not universal and uniform. Understand, our response is not uniform. Therefore, the gender rights are to be specially debated and discussed, and the gender concerns should form an important base of the conceptual framework of the human rights. The philosophical framework of human rights excludes this notion of equality, freedom, dignity, and all that which you are talking about. We are talking about the man than perhaps the woman. And they are therefore saying that this private and public, that's why women's groups are saying private is public, the personal is political. Personal is political. In other words, unless women collectively assert, saying that we will not tolerate this type of discrimination, even with the family. Family is a public domain. Family, whatever happens in the family there should be some public concern. There should be a legal concern, what is happening in the family. And this discourse of the woman gradually led the Sexual Harassment Act, the Family Violence Act, a number of laws are coming now to equalize the woman. But the gender debate has been there. Woman also is arguing, feminists are arguing that abstraction and concrete. Woman's life is located in concrete life experience. Menstruation, body-mind, dichotomy can be okay for man. But when the woman is concerned, every month, at least 3 days, she has to be conscious of her body. Mind is conscious of the body. And body, mind, continuously are interacting with each other. Or when the pregnancy, at 9 months, she is continuously conscious of her body. The mind is conscious of the body. Lactation. That, in other words, the woman's life is located in the concrete life experience, whereas man's life is located in abstraction. Okay, chalta, okay, fine. In other words, what they are saying is man can be an escapist, but woman cannot. Now, therefore, they are arguing that human rights are located, human philosophical rights are located in abstraction. But they are saying what Patel was telling you, what about the concrete human rights practice? Now, the concrete practice, if you come, that the concrete life experience of the woman is not conceptualized. And therefore, women are continuously arguing that till today, human rights discourse is male-centric. And how do you bring the gender question into human rights and make human rights discourse gender-sensitive? I may have many other, I can elaborate the whole thing, but I don't have the time. But I am only trying, because the women friends are there in this group, I would like to acquaint them with the debates. Many of them may be even acquainted, but I would like to acquaint that a lot of debate is going on in the human rights about the gender question. When you come to Marxism has a totally different approach towards human rights. Marx says that equality before the law, because everybody has equal rights, equality before the law without concrete equality in the material existence, if you do not have economic, political and social equality, but you are talking that all of you are equal before the law, then he says this is a juridical, illusion. You created a law and said everybody is equal before the law, but is everybody equal in the real life? In the real life, people are unequal, properties are different, prosperity and poverty are there, and powerful people are there, weak people are there. So Marx says that unless you guarantee concrete equality or equality in the concrete life, if law says that all of you are equal, you are only creating an illusion, but in the real life, everybody can't enjoy the human rights in the same manner. So Marx is reversing the logic. And therefore, he is saying that human rights concern should be how to ensure equality. Equality, social, political, and economic, what Constitution of India talks about. But how do you bring that equality? How do you make human beings equal? Equal means in terms of power, in terms of property, in terms of privileges, in terms of endowments, what Amartya Sen capabilities, and all that. How do you do that? I think that is still being debated in the human rights discourse. In the philosophy, there is a debate going on human rights, and then these questions are being considered that while rule of law is very important, but that rule of law presupposes that everybody human being is equal before the law, whether that assumption of equality will, over a period of time, will become real, where human beings have equal opportunities and equal access to resources, equal employment opportunities, equal education, for example, or access to health. We have seen in the pandemic period what happened. So therefore, you have to gradually create a society where people have equal access. So human rights should transform the society. Human rights should transform the society in such a manner that the spirit of the rule of law, which is liberal theory emphasizes, should gradually lead to the transformation of the society where everybody will have equality, equal rights and equal opportunities to enjoy. So therefore, Marxists entered into the debate from a different vantage point. Now, when you come to Indian, perspectives on human rights, now I have another thing. When you come to the Indian, perspective, that there are three people of whom I would like to mention. There are several others. Three people who have dealt with this question of power, freedom, and all that. One is, of course, Dr. Ambedkar, extensively writing. Then Gandhi. Then one of the persons who has written on human rights and evolution of civil liberties is Ram Manohar Lohia, very interestingly. He was one of the first in 1930s. He wrote a book on the civil liberties. So Lohia, Gandhi, and Ambedkar. Now, Gandhi, very interestingly, when he talks of freedom, now what he talks is that the state or negation of freedom. Gandhi is completely opposed to the state and power. Power, he says, is always dehumanizing. So therefore, you always should suspect the power wherever the power is. And Gandhi, like Marx, talks that ultimately we should have a stateless society. And when somebody asked Gandhi that if there is no state and if there is no order in the society, there will be anarchy. But Gandhi says, my citizen or my society will have people with enlightenment, and therefore I call it enlightened anarchy. Yes, my society will have some anarchy, but that will be enlightened anarchy. Enlightened anarchy in the sense that one human being is so conscious of the freedom of the other that it will be such a conscious society. It doesn't need an external regulator. Society, individual regulates himself. Because individual is conscious individual, socially conscious individual. He is a future individual. So Gandhi has a different conception of the rights and freedoms. So he says, therefore, power has to be decentralized. Power should be gradually dismantled. Nobody should have too much of power. And state should gradually, given to a society where society will be self-regulating without a state. without a state. I mean, they say it may be utopian, but this is the debate that Gandhi, introduced in his, if you read his Hindu Swaraj, or if you read, some of his writing, this is what he keeps on mentioning, that power is always dehumanizing, and therefore power should always be suspect, and the state should gradually decentralize the power. And in 1948, 1st January, before, after 1 month he was assassinated, Gandhi said, any governance which uses force is a foreign government. I don't bother if the Congress is in power or somebody is in power. If they are using force against the citizen, to me it's a foreign government. It's not the ruler, but how do you rule? So that was the type of Gandhi who we had. But the problem with the Gandhian thought, while he is completely, logically, he goes to an extreme point of freedom to the individual and all that, and the power, decentralization, individual as a powerful individual and all. But when it comes to the social structure, Gandhi had no problem with the caste system. He says caste is a division of labor, forgetting there is a discrimination within the caste. There's a hierarchy in the caste. There's a power in the caste system. Even gender question, he thinks that, okay, gender, two genders are there in the nature, one gender should perform. Pardon?
I'm sorry, sir. Since it is online, sometimes it happens. I'm sorry. You may continue, sir.
Okay. Now, therefore, Gandhi had, an understanding of the whole rights. And then come to Dr. Ambedkar. Dr. Ambedkar, as I said, that his vision can be seen in the Constitution, and the equality, liberty, fraternity, these values constitute, and he wanted gradually transformation of the society, and therefore he thought that we should have an egalitarian society, a very harmonious society. And the Lohia, of course, said that we should have several transformations in the society: color, caste, gender, property. He gives several, things as important points of entry into civil liberties. Now, of course, Amartya Sen also later contributed, Upendra Bakshi contributed. So all these people, if you look at the entire discourse from the liberal theory to the latest debates on the human rights, all of them together put what is the vision? The vision is how to humanize the society. I started with, it's not the human right, but right to be human, humanizing the society. If you humanize the society, more and more humanization will lead to greater and greater enjoyment of rights. That's how human rights means rights that I have to be human. I am humanized. So how to humanize the society becomes very important in the entire discourse on human rights. So these have been the philosophical discourses, and having a transformative approach and making India a very humane, egalitarian, participative, democratic society, I think is what ultimately human rights perspective or human rights philosophy hopes for and should struggle for. I would stop here, and if students have some questions or some interventions, or somebody wants to challenge, you are most welcome. Thank you once again for giving me this opportunity of sharing some of these concerns with the students.
We are thankful to you, sir. For me, it is just a refreshment, and I can remember. I can remember about my student days when, in the beginning, in the first class of this course, you have, or whatever you said it, you said it to us. So it is a kind of refreshment for me. And secondly, let me say that it is, you said it is nostalgic for you when Sambalpur University is concerned, and the same nostalgic I am also feeling when you are concerned, sir. So again, the same nostalgia. And let me say one thing. While introducing the speaker, I forgot one thing, and that one thing is very important. When why it is important? Because if I am not wrong, if I remember correctly, Hargopal sir has left civil service and intentionally joined academics. Sir, am I right, sir?
Yeah, I always say that I had a providential escape from being in Indian
Yes.
police service.
I think you are actually, sir, a good example,
I know
because
that.
today students or people are opting power first, and if they cannot, then they are coming to the academics, and
Mr. Ji,
that's
that
how.
is because in this country, so although in my childhood, in my classroom, my headmaster was an idealist, knowledge is power, but in India, increasingly you discover power is knowledge.
Power
That's
is knowledge.
why students opt for IAS because there is power. Somebody opt for
Now
MBA
my
because
question, my
there is
sir, I think
so,
I think I think my problem starts with it. If in India power is knowledge, then how that transformation is possible? How to transform our society, and how society will humanize us? Gradually, we are experiencing, if you take male and female, for female the state is always patriarchal, and for the male the sorry for female the society is always patriarchal, and for the male the state is always gender biased. Now our generation is stuck in this junction or juncture, and but then how to humanize, how this human right will humanize us without the concept of duties and responsibilities.
no, I
Is right is
just to
right
respond to your this question. See, I mean, I have seen in last seven and a half decades of my life that the type of society that I saw as a child and the type of society that I see, there is a progress towards human rights because perhaps you do not know that what Indian society looked like in 1950s and 1960s. Now today, although I mean all these problems are there, but a Dalit today in India is no longer that Dalit, that the traditional Dalit. That this Dalit is more conscious Dalit. And when I went to some field survey, the local landlord was very unhappy and all that. So I asked a Dalit group, why your landlord is very unhappy. One of the old persons said, sir, the dust under his feet has fallen in his eyes. I was still yesterday a dust particle, but today I am in his eyes because I have become more human. I have now I have more dignified human, although maybe not fully dignified. Woman, for that matter. My grandmother was bought from Kerala for 500 rupees. And then only because she was always in the kitchen. And she was something like slave to my grandfather. But my mother used to argue with my father, differ with my father. Right? She had her own views on matter. Myself, my wife, of course, I always call it a Mahabharata battle is going on because she is also equally educated and she claims and she debates, she argues, and my daughters-in-law, they want, and my sons started sharing the domestic work. The things are your generation is different from our generation. That change is happening. There is a Dalit movement, there is the Adivasi movement, there is a feminist movement. Minorities, you have seen how they're asserting, So therefore, there is an assertion on the part, but this assertion has not reached a convergence point where we have created enough of climate in the society where what we say humanizing we are in the process of humanization. We are in the process of dehumanization, but this process is a little prolonged process. So, but human beings, who are at the receiving end, are no longer willing to receive things the way the earlier generations used to receive. There is a change, but this change has to be directed. It has to be channelized, or they must come. All of them should have a convergence point and create conditions where the process of humanization reaches a certain sense of fulfillment. But I always see the future of India in the assertions of the people. Today, the aspirations of the people, the aspirations of my own granddaughters, two granddaughters, the way they speak, the way they argue with you. I mean, it's unbelievable. A grandchild, arguing the way, they argue. And, my granddaughter who is in the third standard, I mean, the way she argues, and, she questions. I was asking her why children go to the school. She said it's to waste their time. I mean, that this generation completely different. And my younger granddaughter goes to Google and says how to escape online classes. And they don't listen to us. They keep questioning. You see any child today, the child is more questioning than the children. We were completely I mean, whatever parents say that was final, but we never argued with our parents. But these children of present generation keep on arguing. So therefore, I see that changes are happening. But these changes have an ups and downs, they break down, hiccups. No society transforms, very orderly, very decent manner. Society is transformed through aberrations. But I do see in my 75 years of life that I see hope for future of human rights, not the way state is conducting, not the way, I mean, the political parties are, ruling. But my hope is in the way that the people are asserting their rights, the way the people are becoming conscious, the way the people have become more conscious of their dignity. I think this cultural resource, which has been created during post-independence India, that is what is the hope for future of human rights. Although we have setbacks, but then society always moves forward. There is a motion, and motion is always forward, although it may have some setbacks and all that.
Yes, sir. I think I agree with you because we need to be, positive. We need to be hopeful, and the cynicism and negativity that may also deteriorate the situation.
Yeah.
Yes,
Though I cannot say that whatever happening that is something good. I cannot say it, but still, then I think if you will be negative, then again the situation will be very worst. So to that extent, I agree with you.
Anyways, you see.
Now I once again welcome Professor Suresh Chandra Patel to give his observation and raise some of his doubts, question, query, or anything, so that our speaker will respond to him. Yes, Patel sir.
thank you, Dr. Mishra. Actually, I am once again honored to interact with Professor G. Hargopal. In fact, I don't have any question to be asked to him, but still then I will have some observation. You see, the way sir told about human rights, he started from giving a conceptual understanding of human rights, then he came to liberal theory of human rights, and finally going with the Indian constitution and all that, he came to Mahatma Gandhi, then came to Ram Manohar Lohia and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So he traveled a long of distance from rule of law to humanizing the process of society. I am spellbound. I am spellbound with the present style of presentation. In fact, I had some other important works to go, but the way sir told about everything. For your information, Dr. Mishra, I have never left a single minute of sir's lecture. Right from the beginning till now, I am sitting and I am listening to him. So credit goes to him, sir. I am extremely happy that you spoke so nicely about the concept of human rights. And what is more important is that, in fact, in the last question asked by Dr. Mishra, you are responding that it is the people who are the torch bearer of the human rights and the process of humanization of the society. In fact, I have the privilege of teaching some theory of human rights, and we must be aware of the 5 or 6 modern theories: the supranationalist theory, the transformation theory, the hegemonial theory, the naturalist theory, the populist theory. There are certain theories relating to human rights, and in fact, you ended with the populist theory. Sometimes, as a teacher, I wonder that what is the way to protect and promote human rights, or how to humanize the society. While teaching, I was thinking about that. But as a teacher, I got the idea that nobody is going to help you. Nobody is going to protect your human rights. Nobody is going to give you all the rights that you need, neither constitution, nothing. But the only way to have our human rights is to people ourselves. We urgently need a movement, global movement, where the people should participate. It is you and me and everybody, in fact, everybody, all people of the whole world, they should take care of their own rights. And that is what the advocates of the populist theory, they are speaking, that the only way to humanize the society is to educate the people so that they will be educated and they will agitate and they will fight for their own rights. So with this and this idea I was having as a teacher, but today I listened from you and I once again became very much happy and confirmed that this is the only way by which we are going to humanize the society, and so that in future, in near future, and also, and I agree that despite the several setbacks that we are witnessing all over the world, including the Russia and Ukraine crisis. When Russia and Ukraine crisis started, the whole world was thinking that what will happen to human rights, or what about the human rights of these people. But still, then you ended nicely by telling that you should be positive. We should, their transformation is going on, changes are going on. Maybe there are, and the process of transformation and change is not straight. It ups and downs. Sometimes you have to go up, then you have to come down, and the society has to be prepared for that. So probably in the 21st century also, we are in that process of transformation. And I am too optimistic with you, sir, that probably the future of human civilization and human beings are bright in future. I am extremely happy to introduce you in the beginning, and also I am extremely grateful to you, sir, for listening the lectures as if I am a student and I was sitting. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I don't have any question to ask to you. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Dr.
Uh,
Mishra. Now you can take over.
Thank you, Patel.
thank you, Patel sir. Before I come to the questions asked by the student, I am also a student, and it's a question that is in my mind, that how to understand duties from human right perspectives, and what is the role of duty so far as this humanization of society is concerned. I
So,
want.
yeah, every right entails a duty. Once I'm a teacher, I'm paid a salary, which is my right. I have a duty to teach. And these two things ought to go together. If somebody is not performing the duty, it is not the problem of rights, it's the problem of the organizational systems. Somebody does not perform. System provides enough of protection. If a teacher doesn't, in University of Hyderabad, a teacher was not properly teaching in the Department of Political Science. There were American students. They have written a letter to the vice chancellor saying that he doesn't come and he comes unprepared and all that. The vice chancellor had removed him. Of course, he called him and said, "Resign and go. Otherwise, I have to remove you because this is the written complaint that you are not going to the class, you are not going prepared to the class." So therefore, there is always a duty to perform. See, I taught maybe for 55 years. See, I always felt that as a teacher, teaching and the production of knowledge, your primary duty. Although I was active, outside also, but whatever might be my activities outside, I hardly used to miss my class because I am conscious of my rights and I am also conscious of my duties. And in the if you see the University Grants Commission report which we prepared, I mean maybe about 20 years back on the guidelines for the human rights program, I also said that maybe the people who are very powerful have a duty towards the deprived, and deprived have the right to demand certain privilege. For example, a Dalit will have a right, maybe an upper caste man will have a duty. A man may have a duty and woman may have a right. In other words, they may be inversely related. And therefore, as women keep on asserting, man becomes more and more, conscious. So similarly, if a Dalit is questioning the upper caste, the upper caste should perform their duty of providing opportunity, but for centuries they were deprived. So therefore, duties and rights in Indian context, where they are hierarchical, maybe certain inverse relation between duties and rights may be structured in such a way that duties and rights are performed in a proper way. So they can't be dichotomized. Even if you look at the duties in the Constitution of India, the amendment which Mrs. Gandhi brought during the emergency, look at those rights, protecting the monuments, scientific temper, promoting scientific temper, all those duties which are there as a part of the Indian Constitution, I think citizens should perform. They are not duties, they are obligations. And the Constitution expects you to promote scientific temper. So in other words, those are the duties we should to perform. Although I was having a reservation that Constitution should never mention duties, they should mention rights, because once I have a right, I have a duty. But if you look at duties included in the Constitution of India, I think those are the duties which every citizen can perform or should perform. So I think this, but they are dichotomized. The duties are pitted against the rights. And they are now they are saying too much rights ka bahut zyada ho gaya. Now let us talk of duties. And of course, the Hindu view of life, the MP Singh has written Hindu view of human rights. Now, where he said a duty performed by an individual is the right cast on the other individual. So if I am performing my duty, and he is arguing, if I am performing my duty, I am extending the right to the other by performing my duty. So therefore, he says that the duties and rights are not necessarily dichotomized. They don't need to be dichotomized. They go together. But the way we understand, is a different thing. But he has developed a full-length argument that a duty-conscious society is a rights-extending society. This is the logic he has built. Because the duty, if you are performing duty, whom are you performing? When you are performing the duty of teaching, you are giving the right of the student to learn. You understand? So the logic, the way, but I am not very happy the way we dichotomize rights and duties. Every right entails a duty. Nobody can enjoy a right without performing his duty. Citizen has a duties and therefore he has rights. I can't be just enjoying my rights and say I will do nothing, but I enjoy my rights. That's not possible. And that's why societies will not be able to move forward. So duties and rights are for the artificial dichotomy ho gaya. And some of those who want to be very powerful say that the poor people have duties and the rich have rights. That's how it can be perverted. But in my own understanding, duties and rights are they are duvitate. They are together. We should never dichotomize and understand duties different from the rights. Rights and duties should be understood together. They should be coupled together instead of dichotomized. That's how I would respond to the rights and duties.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I used to tell to my students, if there is a duty in your right, then you are creating a selfless values for the society. And if your right is detached from the duty, then you are contributing a selfish values. So I think those who are right conscious, they must do for the others so that other will get the right, and simultaneously you can also get your right by the duty of others. So that's how I think we can ensure each other's right. And maybe Gandhi's understanding of that that anarchy, enlightened anarchy, is all about this. So thank you, sir. Students have asked some of the questions. Now I want Pradeep Kumar Pradhan to directly ask question to our speaker. You have written a long question, but speaker will be happy if you will directly ask. Yes, Pradeep, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you have unmute your video, audio, then you ask. He's one of the good student of our department, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for this wonderful, wonderful class, I would say. And sir, my question is that, sir, laws come from the consent of the people, but Indian Constitution is a borrowed one, and to what extent it is based on the consent of the Indians, and to what extent it is based on the ethos and values of our forefathers, and whether the human rights provisions included in our constitutions is constructively uplifting the Indian society.
So see what happens, of course, a very important question. Now, human rights are universal. All nations, all societies contributed to the concept of human rights. If you look at Universal Declaration of Human Rights, right, which evolved by so many nations sat together and formulated the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, right? And socialist societies sat, capitalist societies thought, third world, those who fought against colonialism, all of them fought. I mean, Indian representative, Usha Mehra, she was representing India in the drafting, of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. What happened in the Indian Constitution is that if you look at the language of Universal Declaration and Indian Constitution, almost it tallies. Because in the Universal Declaration from Article 3 to 19 is the fundamental rights of Indian Constitution. Article 19 to 27 is the directive principles of state policy. So the rights have a universal notion. And as far as the Indian traditions and are concerned, now what has happened is that all of those who were sitting in the Constituent Assembly were the freedom, those who participated in the freedom struggle. Having been a part of the freedom struggle, they knew the aspirations of the people, because the aspirations of the people, and they tried to see that whether the aspirations of the people can be incorporated in the Constitution of India. Because what were the aspirations of the people? We think that because they were face to face, they were interacting with the people, they were mobilizing the people, and right, and in the freedom movement, and therefore they understood the pulse, and we think that it reflects or it resonates in the Constitution of India. But consent theory is a concept, it's a philosophical concept. And that's why I said that when Chomsky said manufacturing consent, what he was arguing is that this consent of all human beings and all that liberal theory, which was a conjecture of the origin of the state, how state originated. And they started talking about that human beings consented for a state. Why have they given their freedom, surrendered their freedom to the state? Because they thought state will maintain a little bit of order, right? And the human beings will have to give a little bit of power to the state. And therefore, in the liberal theory, they are arguing that you have bargained. Bargained for what? You bargained for an order and surrendered a part of your freedom to the state. So they should maintain the order, and you should not exercise your freedom completely to a point of anarchy, but you can exercise certain restrained freedoms. That's why, however, in the Constitution of India, you are given a right, but the right also is limited by the Constitution, because you also have an obligation to the society. So consent cannot be 100%. Consent in my own interest. What is my interest? My interest is I want to live in an orderly, peaceful society. How do you maintain order? The state is mandated to maintain certain order in the society, right? And therefore, I can enjoy the residue rights. I have surrendered a part of my rights. I surrendered a part of my rights in my own interest. This is what liberal theory would argue. Therefore, your consent is there. But consent is, as I said, it's a conceptual, category. It's a philosophical category. But if you operationalize it, the question that you are asking is that it becomes extremely difficult to operationalize consent of every individual for the governance. But the spirit of the concept is that nobody governs and rules over me without my, agreeing to that. We have agreed, and therefore they are ruling. This is the logical construct of the liberal theory.
So thank you, sir. Sanjay, you can directly ask your question. Sanjay Meher. Sanjay, are you there? Okay, let me read the question by Sanjay. Sanjay is asking, sir, human rights are universal in nature, or it is based on cultural relativism.
Yeah, see, in the 1993, when I attended the Human Rights Conference of United Nations, uh, by then there was a difference of opinion. Uh, Two things figured in the discourse. One is human rights should be located in the domestic jurisdiction. They should not be influenced by the world concept, because there are developed societies, there are developing. We just got freedom. This is what Dr. Manmohan Singh, who represented India, Prime Minister, was sick, and therefore Manmohan Singh, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, all of them were there. They were arguing with the United Nations that we have just got independence. Don't apply the global standards to us, because we are still developed. You are a developed country, Europe developed, America developed, you have higher standards. But don't apply those standards to us. But China was arguing that the human rights are culture specific. We do not have a notion of an atomistic individual, we have a notion of collective. Right? In Asiatic societies have a notion of collective, we don't have an atomistic individual of a Western kind. Therefore, there is a cultural relativism. That's why every country should be allowed. And that's why you have Asiatic, don't have Asia, but European Declaration of Human Rights, American Declaration of Human Rights, right? African Declaration of Human Rights, Islamic Declaration of Human Rights. So you have now several declarations later. So each declaration talks about the cultural specificity. I haven't gone because I was talking of philosophy. But what you say is that out of these, different declarations, the current debate is cultural relativism and domestic jurisdiction, because now they are saying universal standard. It is too premature for a society to apply to the world, to apply universal norms and universal standards to the nations which are just developing. So this is the argument that's going on. It's an ongoing debate on cultural relativism and domestic jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now, Josna, you have a question you can directly ask.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Firstly, I would like, I'm from Raida Autonomous College, sir. First, I would like to express my profound gratitude to you, sir. This is the first lecture I'm listening to you, and it was super fine, and I have learnt a lot. So, my question is, so even in this fast-paced 21st century, there is a portion in India where gender roles are defined, where women are for homemaking and men are for breadwinning. Sir, if man pursues homemaking, sir, then his integrity is questioned, his manhood is questioned. Sir, is this a violation of human right?
No. See, in fact, uh, how to democratize the division of labor at home is again a debate going on in human rights. That's why when we talked of the feministic critique, when they said public and private, right, and the division of labor in the home, the social structure is patriarchal. That's the reason why. So if a man gets into kitchen, children start calling him, ma, call their mother, and because they think it's the mother's duty to do that. So this, how to democratize the division of labor, domestic division of labor, and see that the woman is released from that drudgery completely, right? And man and woman, they share that domestic drudgery, so that woman has her own time, her own life, her own pursuit. So, but it's not going to be very easy. As you very rightly say that, the way the society structure the values, it takes time. But woman is continuously arguing what to do. My wife has written her autobiography. One of the strongest criticism against me or against men is that why they don't share the domestic work. Why woman is completely involved in the domestic work, and we didn't have enough of time to grow into full, human beings. Our personality has not grown. So now today, as a student, you are very conscious. You are very conscious, and when you get married or when you have a partner, one of the things that is bound to happen with your generations, you will start arguing with the partner that why, this drudgery we can't together, share. This debate started within the domestic, this debate started. But then it takes time. The transformation of a society takes time. And I would think that human rights will be self-fulfilling if only we can democratize the domestic division of labor. Then the society will become very democratic. the dominance and the authoritarianism that you find in politics has roots here in the domestic context. Unless these relations change, the relation between man and woman change within the family, you will not have a democracy, genuine and substantive democracy at a macro level. So there is a link between the family structure and the democracy, the way the democracy functions. You are right that this question is still being debated, very seriously being debated.
Okay, thank you. So, Josna, are you teaching in Raigada or you are still a student?
So I'm pursuing second year of graduation in political science, sir.
Oh, great, great, great. Okay. Maybe
Yes.
Manashri Mohanty is your teacher?
Yes, sir. Our HOD, head of the department.
Okay, I got it. Thank you, thank you.
Yes. Thank
Okay,
you, sir.
Brindavan, you can directly ask the question to our speaker. Brindavan, are you there, Brindavan?
Yes, sir. Thank you
Ah,
so much, sir.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Good evening to you all the dignitaries present over this web talk.
You directly
Uh,
ask the
first,
question and you should be very
sir,
brief.
sir, my question is, beyond any doubt, we can say we are living now in a high-tech society where we can find multiculturalism and economically diversified has been our way of life. So, against this background, how can a poor fellow who is unconscious of human rights can protect his human rights very easily?
See, that's one reason why you have human rights movement, civil liberties movement. See, when I went to Sweden, see, in fact, when I asked my colleagues there that I would like to meet some human rights activists, they said there is no human rights activists, there's no human rights movement, because the Swedish society is so structured that the health is guaranteed, right? Education is guaranteed, then employment is guaranteed, transport is subsidized, and everybody gets employment, right? Now in a society where these rights are extended, but those societies where people do not have a voice, people are not conscious what you say is right, and to voice their concerns there are movements. If there is a Dalit movement, the Dalit movement is partly because all Dalits are not able to voice their concern, therefore there is a movement. So civil liberties movement and human rights movement have come in the transition of a society to compensate. What you are saying is that a person is not conscious, and how can he exercise the right? Now the function of civil liberties movement is to make them conscious that you have rights. If their rights are denied, till they realize, somebody has to talk on their behalf. So this is the function that the social movement, this is the function that human rights group, this is the function civil liberties movements do. So you are right. You are not conscious. Have to be, somebody has to help them till they realize that they become conscious. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Brindavan, there is no following question. Now, Khatima, you can ask your question. Khatima Tripathi.
Thank you very much, sir. A very good evening, sir. I'm Khatima Tripathi, a research scholar. Sir, my question is, nowadays a new question is rising that while being aware of the right of human being, unknowingly, are we snatching the rights of other animals?
The rights of other
Other species.
Other species, other animals. Yes, sir.
other. Yeah. No, I think that even such movements are also there. No, see now Maneka Gandhi. I think in Hyderabad there was an incident that somebody was, the Vice Chancellor wanted, dogs to be thrown out or something. Then one student has written to Maneka Gandhi, and she has written a strong letter to the Vice Chancellor that I understand this is how you are conducting, and then suddenly Vice Chancellor says, no, I am also conscious of the. But see, there are several problems. For example, the whole question of cow nowadays raised, or the whole question of vegetarian, non-vegetarian. I think civilizationally we are stuck at a point that what is right, what is wrong, it is evolving. It's evolving. But this human-centric view of the world has also done a lot of damage to the nature, because the balance in the nature got upset, and you are experiencing already the consequences of not being conscious. See, the whole tiger project, for example, you are going on counting how many tigers are there. If the tigers disappear, the nature gets imbalanced and all that. These debates are going on. That excessive, anthropocentric view of the world, yeah, does damage to the human being also. So therefore, I think you have to live in harmony with the nature and disrupt the nature beyond a particular point, and all other species are a part of the nature. So therefore, I think this consciousness is gradually growing, but consumer to societies, and where I think that this world exists for me, and I am the king, I am the emperor of the world. This view should give in to that. That's what I say humanization. Humanization is not only treating another human being at a human level, but also humanization of the nature. Marx, in fact, says that the relation between man and woman is the most natural relation, right? This natural relation should be humanized. Humanized relation should become natural. Right? That's how human species evolves. So we have to humanize and our nature. Right? And humanize the nature, and you have to naturalize the human. So therefore, this debate is going on, and you are right that the excessive, man-centric view of the world is not only not good in the interest of the species, but in the interest of the human being himself or herself.
So thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
Mira. Thank you, sir.
So thank you, sir. Dr. Sarada Prasanna Raut from Berhampur University. He may ask a question.
Oh,
Sarada
okay.
Babu, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. I'm here. Yeah. So thank you.
You may ask a question.
So, sir, very nice presentations. I have questions. So, like criminals, also they are by the human rights.
Yeah.
So, can you explain, sir? So we know like how they are in the other human rights, but still, it's organizations they are coming for their protection. So,
No, I think they see your system is breaking down.
Yes, Sarada Babu, your voice is
problem
not
with your
clear.
system, yeah.
So if you can write your question, I can read out.
In the chat box, then,
In the meanwhile, I am going back to Samir. Samir, you can raise your question.
I'm audible, sir.
You are audible.
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Mishra, sir. Very good evening, Professor Hargopal, sir. It was a very stimulating talk, and I often read your articles, your books, your lecture. I often watch your lecture. My question is like, why women rights and human rights are viewed as distinct from different contexts? Since we are talking about human rights, which is of course not gender bias, which is belong to everybody, Dalits, poor, Adivasi, downtrodden, everybody. So why these two things are visualized from different contexts, from different lens, since you have very rightly picturized human rights from feminist perspective, and which is very important. So I just want your standpoint in this particular question.
No, see, the point is that while human rights are universal, right? But when you say they are universal, they are not universally being enjoyed. Standard is universalized. Human rights standard is universalized. But practice, real enjoyment of rights is still not, is a reality. So once you have a goal of universalizing rights and everybody should enjoy those rights equally, then the Dalits or Adivasis or women or minorities who are not in a position, historically not located in a position where they are able to enjoy all these rights, then you have to talk the specific group rights as against the standards on the touchstone of the universal standard, and then see that how gradually all these groups reach a point where they will start enjoying the rights like any other privileged groups. So therefore, we talk of specific group because these are the groups which are not able to fully enjoy the rights. And therefore, you focus on those groups, saying that they should have equal rights and the society should transform in such a manner that all of them enjoy these rights. So that's the reason why we talk Dalits, Adivasis, minorities, women, the gender, transgender, all these groups you talk, because the human rights today are not equally available to them. They are not able to access them for different historical reasons. And therefore, no, see, you are right, the rights are universal, but enjoyment of rights is not universal. Till they become universal, we have to, discourse will be, about the deprived, marginalized sections of the society.
Okay, thank you, sir. Let's take, this is the last question. Rameshwari Bhoi, she is asking this question, how we can distinguish between human rights and natural right?
See, this is the problem. Now, we think in the state of nature, that is the pre-civil and pre-political society, human beings enjoyed unrestrained freedom. Right? Human beings enjoyed several rights. And these natural rights, which human beings were enjoying, have become civil liberties or human rights in the legal. Not that you have given any additional right. Anyway, human beings were enjoying these rights. And you have only incorporated those rights. Therefore, rights are so natural that any attempt to violate them is a contradistinction. Therefore, they say that nobody has a right to take away my right because they are so natural. They are born with me. It's a part of my nature. But this fundamentalist argument that human beings, by virtue of being human, enjoying human rights, is all right conceptually. But you must look what happened to the historical evolution of the society, and how property concept came, how power concept came, how the state came, how the dominant sections came. This all happened in human history. Now we reach civilization at a point where we are now conceiving of a society, equitable, everybody has rights and all that. So it's only vision. What I spoke is the debates. They are not final. They are not final statement on human rights. They are all debates. In the course of transformation of a society, right, an unequal, iniquitous, inegalitarian, hierarchical, authoritarian, patriarchal society, we are transforming, or we are transitioning from that society to a more humane, egalitarian, equal, dignified, free, human society in future. So human rights is an instrument, one of the instruments of enabling the human beings to understand the standards and gradually become conscious of their rights, conscious of others' rights, and then conscious of the future. And we are in a motion. Now we are at a particular stage of debate. We have not reached the final goal. It's only direction we are talking about. We are talking of the vision that we should enjoy, we should cultivate, we should nurture, we should promote. Human rights provide a vision of a society, free society, political society, egalitarian society, a libertarian, whatever you may say that. That is a vision. I always therefore call that my approach to human rights is a transformative approach. Human rights as instruments of transformation. Human agency has to play a role in transforming the structure in which we are caught. And structural transformation should lead to the fuller enjoyment of rights.
Okay, thank you, sir. I can sense what your position is on this, critical juncture. But again, as a student, I am asking this last question. Sir, the kind of rights today we all are enjoying in this society, or the rights enjoyed by the states are also enjoying the rights. Now, can you say that these rights are humanizing us, or these rights are dehumanizing us now, today? Theoretically, I understand that rights must humanize. That's why it is a right. But today's, the way we are exercising our rights.
True.
What's your position, sir?
This is, see, what happened, is that the global order got delayed till from 1940s and post Second World War till 70. That first 3 decades of human rights was a period of promise. It was, phase of promise. But what happened in 70s? That America, as it emerged as a very powerful society, in 1970s they had a deep economic crisis. And once they had a deep economic crisis, capitalism, which partly defends the rights, partly defines the rights, and capitalism also knows its survival depends on certain rights guaranteed to the people. But 70s, what happened is that from liberalism, we entered into neoliberalism. And the neoliberalism, alters the very postulate, alters the foundation of the human nature. And neoliberalism, while liberalism talks of self-interest from Adam Smith downwards, that human being is driven by self-interest, the neoliberalism talks about selfishness and virtues of selfishness. If you read books on in defense of selfishness, the Andrand school and all that, they are saying these selfless human beings concerned with others, are very weak human beings. They don't have confidence in themselves. That's why they speak about compassion, kindness, and all that. So they say that compassion is not the strength of human being, but it's a weakness of human being. Selfishness, living for yourself, is a full human being. Now, therefore, the entire perspective has changed. So when you're talking dehumanization, you are now moved into a neoliberalism, which is a process of dehumanization. We are passing through that. But neoliberalism is having its own setback. We have seen what Patel was mentioning of Ukraine. For example, Russia, the way Russian society was imagined, 1917, when there was the revolution, it gave a new hope and all that. Now, what is that society doing? It's under neoliberal roots, and they want to occupy, they want to expand, all that. A society which gave socialist, experiment to the world, today is no longer socialist, but it's completely steeped not only in capitalism, but neoliberalism. And therefore, they go and, want to occupy the, Ukraine, saying that. So it's also true that NATO is also working for its own selfish interests. NATO is not standing for any higher values. So the Ukraine poor fellows, they are caught between a West NATO, which is neoliberal and searching for its own selfish goals, and Soviet Union, Russia, which is also the two selfish, groups, selfish powers are fighting. And these people of Ukraine, unfortunately, got caught in this contradiction, and people are suffering. They are bombarding the civilian population. There is a Geneva Code. In fact, the war has a set no norms. But Russia, its own people are there. 30 years back, they were all part of Russia. And you are bombarding hospitals, schools. This is what neoliberalism does. It dehumanizes you, it desensitizes you. And from this process of dehumanization, gradually, I think human being will emerge. A new human will emerge.
Yeah.
Although, in the Maxim Gorky's mother makes a very interesting observation. This is much before Russian Revolution. Mother says that when I see these boys and girls, I am convinced that they will overthrow this system. But somehow I am not getting confidence they will be able to create a new human being. That's where Soviet Union failed. They have not created a new human being. They have overthrown the state, they created a new state, but they have not created a new human being. Socialism is not only creating a new society, it's a new human being. And that instead of that new human being, we have a dehumanized, power structure, dehumanized states, dehumanized processes. It's very, tragic. But from this tragedy, dialectics operating from a deeply dehumanizing process, I think the human when you see Ukraine, all of us feel very sad about it. All of us feel some concern about them, although we may have nothing to do with Ukraine directly, but a human concern. So I think, human concerns will blossom. But you are right that we are passing through a process of humanization and dehumanization. It's a dialectical process. Ultimately, hope that humanization process will succeed and dehumanization will recede into the background.
No, I'm thankful to you, sir. I agree with that. You know, a new human again, it will born out of this dehumanization. I think that's the reality. You know? A new morning, a new person, a new society always comes after the reconstruction. So thank you, sir. Now we are at the last part of this event. Now I request Sanjay Suna, the MPhil student of our department, to provide vote of thanks. Yes, Sanjay.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Thank you, sir. A warm and graceful evening to our honorable speaker and Professor G. Hargopal and the convener of this webinar, dear Himanshu, Sekhar, Mishra, sir, and the distinguished scholars and the delegates person who are participated here. And it is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks to extend my sincere gratitude to the Almighty for making this webinar today excellent and successful. And I thank you, Professor Hargopal sir, for your precious time from your busy schedule to grace the conversation. Today we had an opportunity to hear you and your thoughts on the philosophical foundation of the human rights, and you have well portrayed the philosophical foundation of the human rights from the perspective of liberal and from Marxist perspective and from the feminist perspective, and also from the Indian perspective, how the Ambedkar, Gandhi, and the Ram Manohar Lohia has expressed on this. And I also thank you so much, sir, again for this wonderful webinar and for your thought. And I also want to extend my thanks to the convener of the webinar, dear Dr. Himanshu Sekhar Mishra, who always try to develop our knowledge by making such kind of webinar, and he always tried to make this kind of webinar and such a kind of atmosphere like in Central University atmosphere here, and by getting the national and international speaker, and I thank you so much. And then I must mention my sense of appreciation to the Suresh Chandra Patel sir for his discussion on this topic. And last but not the least, I give big thank you to the each and one of the participants who made this webinar successful. Thank you.
So thank you, Sanjay, for your vote of thanks, and I should also thank you. I should give special thanks to Dr. Suresh Chandra Patel for introducing the theme of this talk, and I am obliged, and if I'll say that I'm to Hargopal sir, if I'll say that I'm thank you, that is not enough. I think as a student, it's my duty, and as a teacher, it's your right to enlighten, to my students. So today you talked the students of your student.
No, it's the other way around. You have a right, I have a duty.
I have a right, and you have a duty too. So thank you, sir. When you people,
it will be in touch. Patel, thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir. So since I'm conducting it informally, the agreement and the participation of Professor G. Hargopal means a lot for me and a lot for the academics. Since he has left, so I think I must stop the recording, and thank you.